I've seen this truly change people's lives. We've got one guy who, my a gentleman who bought a house in Palm Coast. He showed up to the tour, my wife and I, and him and his wife, and then his daughter came out of the van, and she has cerebral palsy, can't walk, and can never have a job. And my wife, being the curious cat she is, asked, why do you want to buy this? And he said, so when we're dead, she can have funds to support herself because she'll never be able to work a meaningful job. And that's like a renounding, theme for all of this is
Yeah.
people need to supplement income for whatever it might be. If it's their passing because they're handicapped child, or if it's, retire and maintain a $10,000 a month lifestyle. People have that,
Mhm.
people want to drive a Corvette. People want to fly a plane that they privately own. And those are all investors of our, like, scenarios from investors of ours.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Mindy Nickel, and this is Build Wealth Through Real Estate. This video features conversations around rental properties, hospitality, and how to use real estate to create wealth. If you don't already know about Southern Impression Homes and their build to rent model, this is a game changer for investors who want new construction, less headaches, and are interested in duplexes and multifamily. My guest today is Beck from Southern Impression Homes based in Jacksonville, and you can decide if this is something that might be right for you. Austin, do you want to sort of give us an overview, the background of Southern Impression Homes and how you got to the new build model where you are now?
Yeah, thanks, Mindy, and we're super excited to be here and be involved with you all. Hopefully, we can find a way to work together. So the way that we started about 20 years ago, we were just a property management company. We were managing assets all over Jacksonville, and then we started doing rehab. So the BRR, buy, repair, rent, the BRR method, and we did about 2,000 of those, and we were selling those to investors in turnkey scenarios. And we found that from 2,000, which is a big number, on the third year, there was a massive expense. So it could have been the roof, it could have been the knob and tube electrical that's very popular in the 70s here in Florida. Those were really big ticket items that were really crushing our investors. So we did not feel this was a good path for us to take anymore, right? So we converted in 2016 to become a builder. So we started Southern Impression Homes in 2016, all focused on BTR. So we might do, 5% of our annual deals might be retail end users. Everything is gauged for a tenant with the strategy of how we're building it, the materials that we're using, all the warranties, the heavy warranties on all of these things, because we can't control what the kids are going to do or the pets, right? But everybody has them. So we've built 8,500 units since then. We have well over 1,000 investors, from doctors, lawyers, military folks, NFL football players. JP Morgan's holding company is Haven. So if you're invested in JP Morgan, they invest in a lot of different ways: stocks, index funds, real estate. We are building their real estate for their company Haven, which one of our communities is in St. Augustine. It's a gorgeous townhome community that we built for them called Old Moultrie. So we work with a lot of different individuals, if it's the first time investor or if it's somebody who's building on their portfolio. We've had so much success that last year we were acquired by the third largest bank of Japan called Sumitomo Forestry. And boy, did that help us, where a lot of these builders in Florida have taken a lot of heat with the interest rates going up. And in some scenarios, we've actually bailed out some builders that collected millions of dollars of deposits and then couldn't deliver anything. And it burned customers that way. So that really helped us. It cleared all of our debt. We had 10 builder lines of credit at that time. And before, Mindy, I'd need you to be the buyer. I'd have the contract, and then I'd take that to the bank and start the full process. So you'd be a year and a half away from what you want, right? Now we're on a constant build cycle. I have 175 properties available right now with 6,000 in the pipeline.
So how do you decide where? I know you specialize in Florida, but it's
Yes,
not
ma'am.
just Northeast Florida, right? It's different pockets. Do you want to talk about those markets and how you decide to go into a market?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always the sexy markets, Orlando, Miami, Tampa. Those are markets where what we're trying to achieve, which is cash flow, is not really possible. We need to focus on the secondary markets. Jacksonville, Southwest Florida being Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda. Ocala is a major market for us, the second fastest growing market in the whole country currently. And then Palm Coast. These are markets that have a lot of great things that we're looking for. And we're looking for economic growth, population growth, and overall job growth. So anything that is coming into a market, we're going to analyze it. How many people are moving in? How many people are leaving? All these factors go into us deploying, $50 to $100 million to start building that area out and taking our time. It takes generally 2 years from a permit submission to the end product. So it's a lot of time at hand, and we need to make sure that we're making good choices when we pick those markets. They all have the same principles.
Yeah. So what's your main focus? What would you say the biggest market is for you guys?
The biggest market for us is, I would say what volume we're doing the most of is Ocala. That was an area where it's the biggest in-migration in the state. So Floridians are being priced out of the coastline, as folks are, pandemic introduced us to a whole new audience of Floridians, right? People that can have their office job in New York City, but live on the beach in Cape Coral, right? We had a huge influx during that time where a lot of Floridians were priced out. They don't want to leave the state, right? So they're moving into Ocala. Ocala is definitely our biggest. And then Jacksonville we have a lot of construction going on in Jacksonville, a lot more community settings because, we are one of the bigger populations here in Florida. Huge job market here. So I would say between Ocala and Jacksonville, those are our two biggest markets currently.
I just have a question from Dirk. Once you select a new market, do you generally start with similar projects and ramp up? Do you have a recent example?
Yeah, so great question, Dirk. So what we do and what was the driving force for us to be acquired over the other 25 builders is we are not like a DR Horton where we need to have a community to build out our product. We come in and we build in already established communities. So there's already proof of concept. There's already homes there. There's already a desire to be there. We're coming in and buying scattered sites or infill lots and building our product there. It's important for us to have homeowners around. If I have a whole community of BTR, they're not going to grow appreciation because there's no homeowner that's trying to get in there. So we want to be around homeowners so that the area is appreciating, because the dirt is what appreciates. Obviously, the structure gets deteriorates, and you can write that off, which is great, but it's the dirt that is getting more and more valuable.
Got it. Do you want to maybe do some examples, Austin, of a duplex, let's say in Palm Coast? Perhaps you could share your screen and show us.
Yeah, I would love
the price point we're looking at, what does the model look like? And then what kind of rents, all of that stuff.
Absolutely. So here's an overview of all of our markets, and Mindy and I were just kind of chatting about, I put some silly things in there like Walmarts and Chick-fil-A's just to kind of show, our equidistance to everything, but we're focused primarily in Jacksonville, Palm Coast, Ocala, and then the Southwest Florida band here. But we'll go to one of my duplexes here. So my products are all going to be exactly the same, right? In terms of building materials, I'm always going to have granite in there. I'm always going to have LVP flooring. I'm always going to have eggshell, or some people call it orange peel paint. This is something that is very easy to scrub off. If there's dirty little fingers playing in the yard all day, come and touch it up. We can easily remove that with semi-gloss paint. You have to repaint the whole wall. So this is our 2-2 product in Palm Coast. This is 13 Wheaton is the address here. I love Palm Coast. So this lady has a beautiful garden that wraps around the whole building. This is an area where there's a ton of pride and ownership, and you can tell by driving through it. Stainless steel appliances, our Frigidaire appliances all come with the builds. Granite countertops. Here's that LVP flooring. On the coastline in Florida, we're very, obviously hurricanes happen here, right? It's something we can't dodge, but what we can do is prepare these buildings in a way to where if there is a hurricane, there's not going to be any damage. So these are ballistic windows and door frames. They can on the window, it actually says can sustain the force of a 180-pound missile. And those are also warranted for 10 years. Other than that, we're using hurricane straps and clips. The hurricanes are, they're two-sided, right? Yes, they're devastating, but what they do is they teach us to be better builders and better at what we do. So everything on the coastline here is built up at a higher pitch. And they're gonna have all the hurricane straps and clips to really keep the roof on. I know everybody's probably familiar with Hurricane Ian, which devastated Fort Myers Beach. We had 300 homes there at the time that happened, and only 4 needed insurance claims over $4,000. Those 4 homes didn't have roofs on it yet. So the roof is what holds the box together, right? So it's a very important part of it. It's like pulling a transmission out of the car. You don't ever want to pull the transmission out of the car. There's probably something else that is wrong. Same
Yeah,
thing with
just
the
on that
roof.
previous example, Austin,
Yeah.
you said it's a 2-2. Is it a 2-2 on one side and a 2-2 on the other side?
It is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom on each side. So the
On each
eastern
side. I just wanted to
garage,
clarify that because the listing looked like it was just one,
yeah, it is
one
very
side.
confusing.
It's for
I put
480,000.
this is for 490.
490. Okay.
And Mindy, the important part of that, knowing that number, that number is not, that number is going to include me putting in 10.5 points for you to have a 3.75% interest rate. So I'm not tacking on additional points to get you to pay for that interest rate. I'm giving up my profit. All this stuff appraises. It's all valued. Actually, our competitors, which you all can find this on Zillow, we also will look at one of my 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom options, but they're selling their 6-bedroom, 4-bath options for 700,000. I'm selling mine for 520. In the bathroom, a very really important part when anybody's buying any type of home, even if it's with me or if it's a primary, a popular thing, a shortcut that builders are doing is putting this plastic inlay instead of an actual shower or tub. That is the worst thing you can do. You want to have a real backsplash with real tiles and a real shower pan or a real bathtub. This is going to create a sealant to where the water will not drip onto the foundation, causing foundational crack, which can essentially split your home, right? So it's a very popular, quick fix deal that these builders are doing. They're cutting corners. So you really want to work with reputable people. They'll also will do thinner foundational walls that can be devastating. That's something that you cannot repair. So you want to be very careful when you work with whatever builder you're working with. So this is the virtual tour here. And this is a product that we are able to rent so quickly here in this market because duplexes are very common. So right back here are 2 duplexes. What we're seeing are people are moving out of the older duplexes and moving directly into ours across the street. 9 times out of 10, I have tenants in place in Palm Coast specific duplexes before my investor closes because it's just such a demand for housing
Is it
there.
because it's new or is it cheaper than what they were renting for across the road?
It's certainly because it's new. The tenants aren't dumb. They understand that, if you're gonna move into something brand new, you're gonna get the energy efficiency, you're gonna have cheaper bills. So what they're doing in this market, and I'll pull up my Palm Coast map here, is they're moving into duplexes right across the street into ours because it's brand new. But there's also a huge rush of people moving here now. I mentioned this to you earlier, Mindy, but this is a brand new hospital. There's already 4 hospitals here because this was kind of a retirement city, like a lot of the coastal towns have historically been in Florida. They just built this opened in 2023. They didn't need it, but they didn't need it because they had 4 already, but they need it because there's so many people moving in.
Yeah. And I also want to mention, just as a sidebar, professionals that work at the hospital, that is your renter market as well, right? So when you see a
100%.
hospital on a map, I mean, those could be professionals that actually rent from you as a landlord.
100%. And when you're dealing with something along the coastline, we only manage in the long term. But there's a lot of I'm trying to see if I can find one of the other hospitals here. If I can't, no big deal. But there's 4 or 5 hospitals close enough to any of my holdings to where you can take advantage of what's called midterm rentals.
Mhm.
So midterm rentals are generally 90% traveling nurses, 10% distressed families. Maybe their home burned down or something bad happened. But you can be paid more as a landlord for the more hospitals nearby. And generally they'll pay for 3 to 6 months upfront, boom, right now. And they generally pay about 75% more than the rent that you projected. So that could be a great strategy. Now, that's not what I manage. I manage in the long term because I go for tried and true. I want the guarantees. I'm a bird in the hand kind of guy. But that is something that some of my investors do is use my holdings, and it works very well in Jacksonville. I mean, Mindy, you're here. You know how many hospitals we have. The
Yeah.
short-term rentals or the midterm rentals make a lot of sense for me in Palm Coast because tell me a nurse that on their one day off doesn't want to be sitting out on the sand, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, just to clarify, those midterm rentals are probably furnished, right?
Yeah,
And
you'd work with the hospital. They have
yeah,
programs to furnish and all that. And you're getting paid by the hospital for that.
yeah. But I'm
It's
sure they like it being new construction,
oh,
and
they
so
love it.
close to
Yeah.
the hospital.
They love the beach too. That's why
Yeah.
that's what makes the most sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about the different price points because you mentioned that you actually have one at 520,000. We
Yes,
just saw
ma'am.
the 490,000 one. What have we got to choose from in the product range?
Yeah, so my products start at $264,000 for a single family home in Citrus Springer and Inverness. Those are smaller markets in Central Florida that are gaining a lot of people currently. Up to my most expensive asset is my $1 million quads here in Jacksonville. It's in a city called Mandarin. And Dirk will definitely talk about the areas that we're building here in Jacksonville, and more importantly, our rental partnership program that we have with the military, where we are the preferred housing provider for the military service members here in Jacksonville. It's a very exciting thing for us. But yeah, we have the quadruplex is going to be from 819,000 to 989,000 here in Jacksonville. We build on each side of the river. In every market you go to, there is a landmark that dictates this is where the rich people want to live, and this is where the folks that are maybe not as well off live. There's everywhere there is one. Here in Jacksonville is the St. Johns River. If you live east of the St. Johns River, you are making a lot more money and you have a much more productive lifestyle maybe than somebody that lives on the west side of the river. Maybe it's by choice or it's by decisions, born into the scenario, whatever it might be. It's just what it is here in Jacksonville. So, but we build on both sides. So we build in C markets, so we can offer an $819,000 price point, or we build in an A market where we can offer, it's yes, it's $1 million, but you're going to have a much larger rental pool. The dirt values are going to grow much more. Now, yes, it's a bigger investment on your part, but it's going to be a long-term better play. You get for what you get what you pay for, right? Is the saying. But we're building all over the city of Jacksonville, Dirk. We're not building at the beach because the dirt values are way too high. If this was 15 years ago, you better believe we'd be building there. But we're buying single family houses or single family lots now for up to $100,000 here in Jacksonville because of the mass rush to the city.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about property management because I think this is one of the selling points you have, right? You
Yeah.
talk about being hassle-free. You're taking all of the work that would be required of a landlord and handling it. I believe for the first 2 years, is that right? That you do that for free?
Yep, we offer so the PM part of the business is in the red. It's always in the red. It's not something that's a profit center for us. So we give the first 2 years away for free. We want the asset, if it's a single family home or a quad, we want to stabilize for you. We want to stimulate the money making, right? And so by year 3, with rent increases, we feel that you might not even notice that the management fee has kicked in, and it's only on rents that have been secured. So Mindy, if you're my investor and you just bought the house and there's nobody in it, I'm not charging you 8% of the projected rent. You're only being charged 8% of rents collected. And then after that, after the first 2 years, it becomes 8%. If anybody is familiar with property management in Florida, you probably are working with them. Generally, you'll see 10 to 15% is pretty standard. If you get 10%, that's the family and friends discount. We're never increasing it over 8%. Like I mentioned, this isn't a service that we provide to stimulate sales. The selling of our assets is what keeps our business afloat, not the property management piece. We manage 3,500 units across the entire state.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting. What about vacancy rates? Can you talk a little bit about the tenants and also how long they tend to stay? If you have any
Yeah.
data on that.
Yeah, so our tenants tend to stay for 3.5 years. It's actually more like 3.35 years on average. Now that includes my single family homes up to my quads. Now the quads are going to have maybe a little bit thinner of a of a life, not life, I don't want to say lifespan, but the amount of time a tenant's in there, maybe a quad's more of a stepping stone to get to a more permanent living. But I have folks that have stayed in a single family home of ours for 8 years. I have an elder lady in Ocala that's been with us since she was the first tenant, the only tenant. So she's been there for 8 years. But 3.35 is our average, how long our average tenant stays. But we're looking for that, Mindy. When in Florida, it's a very unique state where, in other states like California, if John is the first one to apply and he fits all the criteria, you have to rent to him. In Florida, you don't have to do that. We have the ability to sort through 10 to 15 different applicants and find out this is the best one for our investor. They have children that are young, that are in school, that are in the school district, they're not going to leave. Those are things that we look for. Sometimes is it going to take maybe a little bit longer? Maybe, but I'd rather have the family that's not going to move for 5 years than a one and done guy. Right. But so that's who we're looking for. We're not renting to college kids. That's not our tenant. That's not who we're looking for in a tenant, right? We're not looking for the young 20-year-old that's just bopping around. We're looking for families first.
Mm-hmm. So you guys you're vetting them, you're
Oh, yeah.
managing the property, you're handling all the questions from tenants, everything like that.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so it's really from an investor perspective, I mean, you're just paying the mortgage, right? I mean, and some of the bills, maybe the landscaping or
All my investors do is sit back and collect what I call the mailbox money. It's the cash flow every year.
there you go.
Everything pays for itself here, Mindy. Everything that how we price these are to be competitive and to create returns. We're one of those builders that's knowledgeable that a happy investor buys more. So we want
Yeah.
to create a nice investing environment where your money's going to be put to work in a proper way for a house that 10 years down the road when 10 years down the road when you've already recouped your down payment, you're basically in the black from there on out. It's now only 10 years old, not 35 years old, like a lot of fix and flippers do. That's going to have a ton of value. That's our whole business model. And, we take these folks through a rigorous screening process, in a lot of states, it's at the most that they can demand for income is 2x the rent. We are at 3x. Now, we don't have to exercise that, but we do. So if you want to be a tenant of ours, they must make 3 times the rental amount.
Mm-hmm.
Which weeds out a lot of the bad seeds.
Gotcha. All right. Well, before we dig into kind of the financial stuff, I just wanted to mention, you could speak to the permitting situation. I believe that building permits are starting to slow down. Does that mean that multifamily in Palm Coast, for example, will become more valuable over time because there won't be as many options for people? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. So we were chatting about this a little bit earlier and we pulled up a sheet. So this is from the Federal Reserve. So don't take it from me, take it from the government. This is how, when we work with our investors, this is not an emotional purchase. This is a logical purchase. So currently Florida is growing at the fastest rate in the whole country. We grew 365,000 people last year. We grew 400,000 the year before. In a percentage standpoint, we grew 1.68%. The only one state grew more than us, and it was 1.7. It was South Carolina. They only had 5 million people. We have 23 million here. So when we grow 1.68%, it's a lot bigger of a number than a state that's only 5 million. But what we have here, this is the Federal Reserve's chart. This is when you all remember what happened in 2020. This is when we thought we were all gonna die, right here, this little gray spot. And then this is when nobody was working. Oh, stimulus checks. Now we need to stimulate the money movement. So the interest rates drop. Here's COVID interest rate here. So this is the peak of permits pulled permits authorized. So then we did dips and valleys, going down, trending down, trending down. Another big permit moment here was in 2023. So what we're seeing currently are units that were delivered were from here, right? So now in 2025, 26, we'll see these units being delivered. But look at what's happening now. It's just going down and down and down. We're actually at one point right here, we were down 50% of where we need to be. So we're continuously going in a downward trajectory. The interest rates, and so these are, to put that into perspective, Mindy, if they even started the paperwork today, that doesn't mean that they're going to be authorized for a year, and then there's 2 years of building ahead of that. So if best case scenario, somebody it was authorized today, they're not going to be able to deliver that unit until 26 or beyond. So I know a lot of people think that the rents are going down because of overbuilding. It couldn't be any more true. You need to look at the permits. This is empirical data of everything that this is the foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah, and this
That
is this
coupled
is
with
all housing, right? It's not just multifamily.
this is all housing.
Okay.
So I think that I think we were at 700 and 750 right here nationwide, multifamily permits pulled nationwide. And that's one of the charts. If you all want to look at it, this is a great asset that I use daily. Um, and it was like 750 nationwide multifamily permits have been pulled on this day of February 23. This number is down half of that. It's like it's just under 400. So, and that's a national number. This is just specifically Florida. So there is a huge decline in building. But I also think that, obviously the traditional apartment style will always work. But I do think that people are starting to pivot away as more of these BTR products are coming on board. I think we're going to see less and less of these big multifamily properties because the vacancy is just going to get too high. Who doesn't want to have their own backyard, their own space, right? Even if it's a duplex,
Yeah.
you have 1,300 square feet on one side, you have 1,300 square feet on the other, and it's a lot more private, right? A little bigger space. So I think that we're actually seeing the new trend of housing here. As there's a lot that goes into a
And that's
commercial
for
build.
Florida. So
This
what
is
does, if you had to interpret this, what it means in terms of equity is that the property is going to be more valuable in the next, well, after it's built in the next 5 years because there's less inventory. Is that what you're
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, Mindy, what I would say is that coupled with the amount of people that are moving in, we're not going to be able to keep up. We're already in a huge housing crisis here in Florida. Some people say, we're 2 million houses away. Some people say, less, depends on who you're listening to. But that coupled with the amount of people that are moving here, supply and demand, the demand is going to outweigh the supply drastically.
Yeah. Now, what about rents? What does that mean for rent?
Rents are going to go up.
They're gonna go up.
We're already seeing it in a lot of these markets. Now there's the markets like Southwest Florida, which I'm not somebody who is just pumping SI homes, SI homes, SI homes. I try to create happy investors. Southwest Florida, I'm not going to guide my investors there necessarily because there's a lot of competition. That's where everybody during the pandemic moved. So Cape Coral particularly grew 35% populace. But when you only have 100,000 people, that's not that big of a number. But every builder in the country kind of took notice to that, and they dumped like 10,000 units in there. So would I sell an investor a pre-rented house in Southwest Florida? Absolutely. Am I going to guide them to, hey, this is my recommendation? No. I'm going to guide them to the Palm Coast, the beach town that it has been overshadowed that now everybody is now finding, right? That's the bigger play for me personally. And that's how I invest is I follow the trends. I look at the permits, where are people moving? That's how I invest. I try to be very analytical.
Well, we all should be analytical. That's important. We have a couple of questions in the chat for you.
Yeah.
Can you accommodate 1031 exchanges?
Yeah, I certainly can. So, great question. So being that I'll just briefly show you my inventory sheet. This is all ongoing construction here. As you can see, quite a bit of buildings is just my Cape Coral. Now we're in Citrus Springs, but you can see all different time periods. If you need it in 6 months, I've got that. If you need it tomorrow, I've got that. What before the acquisition by Sumitomo, when we had to find the buyer before we could build, I had to turn down a lot of that type of business. Now I don't have to. So we just find a product that fits your time frame and we execute the contract with contingencies, of course, Mindy. We're
Yeah.
going to put in a contingency that says sale is contingent on the closing of X, right? So we protect all of our investors to the most. We're in the business of doing what we said, doing good deals.
Yeah. So the
It's very
answer is
important.
yes. And with regards to the 1031 exchange, the 45-day identification, right? And then 180
6 months to
days to
close.
close. You already have inventory that is built, is that right? And that's available
Yeah.
for purchase. And then you also
Absolutely.
have forward inventory that you could purchase even
Yeah.
before the build starts. Is that
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And even if one of them, like, so for example, so you've seen all these different time frames, and that's why I was trying to show everybody that we have a time frame that'll match anybody's 1031. But say, Mindy, you wanted this property, but it's completed. We'll wait for your 1031, right? Now, would we prefer that you pick one that's going to be closer to when your sale closes? Yeah, sure. But if we need to wait 60 to 70 days, we'll hold this off the market for you. We're not too proud.
Great. All right. The next question is, what are the rents expected for this unit type in Northeast Florida? So how would you like to go over what rents you're seeing right now and perhaps for Palm Coast?
Yeah. Yeah, so my 2-2 product in Palm Coast is renting consistently at 1545 on each side. So 3090, that is the rental range that I'm projecting as well. So we give our rental ranges $100 buffer. So it could either be 2990 or 3090. We're consistently hitting the top mark, which equates to 1445, or I apologize. It's $100 rental range for each unit. So it could be 1445 to 1545. We're consistently getting 1545 on each side every single time. That's another reason that we know people are moving here and there's a huge demand for housing. What other Jack, if you're speaking on quads, we are ranging from 1200 to 1300 on my west side product. That's my C neighborhoods. In my A neighborhoods, we're ranging from 1450 to 1550.
The one you are referencing for the 3090, is that 490,000?
So that is the 489.9. Now, anecdotally, I put one under contract today for 479.9, and I still gave him the 3.75 with 2 years of free PM, and I believe we waived the leasing fee. So there is a leasing fee to market this and to get the tenants to background checks for 10 to 12 different applicants that the investor does pay for, but we can put those types of things in offers and has to be waived. But the price is negotiable. It just depends on what you want from me. If you don't want my interest rate because you're buying it in cash, I've sold these for 460. I've sold them for 440 or 450. It all depends on what, we're going to give you guys every bit of margin that we can. We're a very thin margin builder.
Management fee is nothing for the first 2 years. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. And then on year 3, it kicks into 8%.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So it would be 8% of rents collected, Jack, in year 3. And now it's not something that you have to use either. I say use the 2 years because they're free. But if in year 3 you want to take over, by all means.
And that's the duplex we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you ever find people are kind of buying them to live in one side and rent in the other? Do you get much of that, or mainly investors are buying them to rent both?
Oh yeah. And so, when Mindy, historically single family homes have been what has appreciated the most, comparatively to the price, right? Well, in October of 23, the Fannie and Freddie changed the world when they are now allowing duplexes and quads to be purchased with only 5% down, an FHA loan similar to what single family are. So first time home buyers can now buy duplexes with 5% down. To me, that's how I started. I had a duplex at the beach, lived in one side, rented out the other. So that is a huge selling point. Now, I personally don't feel good about letting an investor do that with a quad because it does take more time to stabilize a quad. And I don't want to see an investor, go under because they're trying to support 4 units, the mortgage for 4 units. But and if they want to do it, I don't stop anybody from doing what they want, but I personally wouldn't guide that, but I would guide them to do it at a duplex. I think it makes a ton of sense and it's going to create so much appreciation because a duplex buyer could be any type of buyer, and a quad buyer is an investor generally,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. How about we switch gears and look at a spreadsheet and go
Yeah,
through, all the numbers, the rents, expenses and things.
sure. Let's do the duplex because I have that
Yeah.
one. I have that one. I'm pretty sure pulled up, but also let's take a. Oh, I don't know. I don't think I shared my screen. Let's do the duplex. I love that one. That's my favorite asset class. It performs the best, for my clients, so I always tend to lean on that one. So this is the incentive sheet that we are doing this summer. So this is a very, very expensive buy down for us. But it's okay. We're here to stimulate to do deals, and this is a great time to buy, right? Um, we have a few different options for all of our different types of investors. We have a 10-6 arm, which Chad will be joining us, our lender, to kind of touch base on everything that we're offering here. But our investors can choose from any of these options. You're going to see this 1.95 discount points. That's a percentage based off the loan amount. So just to make you feel better, I'm putting in 10.5. So you're only responsible for that little measly 2, or here 1, or here 0. I mean, if you want a 30-year product, nothing better than paying nothing and then me giving you 1%, right? So we're in that scenario, we didn't maximize our builder concession, right? So we're giving that extra concession away as a selling credit. We're here to do deals, Mindy. And I think that this is a good example of that, where it's very expensive for, if somebody wanted a 3.75 on my quad, that would cost me about 70 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll give it up because we would rather sell it than hold it. But let's get into some numbers here. So these are going to be built rather conservatively. And actually, I actually was building this one earlier. So this is one of my quads here in Jacksonville. But I can do these numbers pretty easily with the duplex. I work with them all the time. But so we'll go to the assumptions. So Jacksonville, it's a single family home, supposed to say quad. 989.9 is the purchase price. Put down 25%. Here's your 25%. 3.75 is the interest rate you get. This is 1.95, but it rounds to 2. 3% are the closing costs. So it's generally, 3.1% is generally what it ends up being. That's going to include your prepaids as well. So you're going to end up paying for your insurance and your taxes upfront. That's part of that 3%. So it's a benefit to you. It's not just like it's a 3% origination fee. Here's the projected rents for that product. Here's that rent range. So property taxes, this is an actual figure. This is an actual figure, 1683 annually for insurance in Florida. That's the biggest misconception of Florida real estate. If you buy anything before 2003, you don't have the builder code for hurricane prevention or protection. So that's where people are paying $6,000 to $7,000 annually in insurance. And I can provide the insurance quotes, but you want to make sure you work with my insurer. But here are the numbers here. So we build in vacancy loss. We're at a 4% vacancy loss across our entire portfolio, so 3,500 units. So we put that in here because we feel it's an accurate piece of data. 3,500 is a big data set, so we're comfortable putting that in there. Property taxes here, insurance. This is for 4 doors too. This is 1683. It's actually 1654 for 4 doors to ensure that. Maintenance is going to be minimal, right? Maintenance is this, everything's warranted, Mindy. So year one is full bumper to bumper. And then years 2 through 10 are going to be protected on a 210 warranty. So the 2 and the 210 is for the systems of the home. That's your plumbing, your electrical, your HVAC, all the systems of the home are going to be covered for the first 2 years. If there's an issue not caused by the tenant, which would be them not replacing the air filter, it's going to be known right away. You know, your electrical is not going to just fry on year 3. It's going to have been an installation error. And then you have 10 years on the structure. So everything but the non-load bearing walls inside. So everything that's load bearing is covered. Everything externally is going to be covered, including the roof and the foundation. That's a very important warranty, and we're going to carry that. So here's the nitty gritty right here. Operating expenses, about $1,000. So in this year one tax discount. So this property is only going to be, you're only going to be taxed probably around 1,000, maybe a little bit more in year one. So if a property doesn't CO before January 1st, it has to be assessed as dirt only. Even if it's 99% completed, if it COs on January 2nd, you get now 364 days of no tax because it's considered dirt. Now the next year will be reassessed for the value of the property. And now when they reassess values, Mindy, it's not based off that purchase price. It's based off of material cost, material and land cost. So there's some things that there's not going to be, you know, like my products in Palm Coast are being assessed at $312,000. Now they're appraising at 500, right? But the assessment by the tax collector is at 312,000, and my investors are paying 85% of that, or being 0.85%. So the mortgage payment on a 3.75 is looking like 3,400. The pocket money, 1,535 a month. We have some principal reduction, how much the what you owe is coming down. First year appreciation. I build these pretty conservatively. I believe that building, although Jacksonville is appreciating at almost 10%, I have this at 8. I'll build these at 5% as well, just to kind of show, not everything is going to appreciate. Not every year you're going to appreciate 8%, but maybe one year you appreciate 15, one year you appreciate 3.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
market specific, right? It would
Very
depend
much.
where the property was located. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And everything in Florida is growing rapidly. So we've got the 2 years of free property management here. Let me pull this over to the side. So here are the cumulative cash flows down here. So this is going to be stretched out to 5 years. And I also have a pro forma for this for stretched out to 15 years. But so this would be if your market value bought it here. By year 5, we're projecting at an 8% appreciation rate. This will be worth 1.34 million. Anecdotally, our community that is 5 years old as of this year, Western Way, which if you're familiar with Jacksonville, it's off Bay Meadows. Those were sold. Those have grown way more than that in appreciation. And that was our first quad community. We were told that it would not work, and now there's no vacancies. There hasn't been vacancies in that community for like 3 years, and they were sold at around 400,000 in 19, and now they're valued for well over $1 million per building. So this does work. We have data that can prove all of these numbers. Here's your cumulative cash flows. This is with a small rental increase of I believe it's at 4%. Some years we've grown 20%. Some years we've grown 4%. So we want to keep it kind of on a lower, more conservative number. But this is the numbers that we underwrite, and we can certainly get this out to everybody here. And we can do duplexes, all of that. This would be kind of the biggest ticket item here, Mindy.
Yeah. How long do your investors tend to hold these properties? Because I like looking at it over the long term. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the cash flow is interesting for year one, but it's really, isn't this more of a long-term play?
Absolutely, that's what I preach. So I preach the buy and hold real estate is what I try to sell. Now everybody's different. Investors have all different types of desires and of what they want out of a property. Some people want to get in and get out, which can be effective. I've had customers buy a house and the appraisal came in so high they sold it immediately. So that just happened in 22. A duplex was appraised at $100,000 more than per list price, so we sold it. But so it's a mixed bag. I generally my clients are buy and hold investors though.
Well, it's probably a good time to switch into financing because it's interesting that Southern Impressions actually has you have the build side of things, you have the property management side of things, and then now you also help people get loans, right?
Yeah,
So we've got Chad Emerson on the call. Thanks for joining. Do you want to
Yeah,
introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you work with Southern Impressions?
yeah. My name is Chad Emerson. I work with CMG Financial. I'm located officially in Texas, but I do significant amount of lending in Florida. And probably about 98% of my clientele are investors. That's how I got connected with Southern Impression Homes. Obviously, they're building for investors, and I do financing for investors.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Do you want to walk us through some of the numbers, specifically the ones we saw in the 3% for your promotion coming up?
Yeah, so a lot of people think, well, first of all, how are we doing that? Let me just kind of give you a brief overview of how that works. So we've actually partnered with Southern Impression Homes, where they're an approved builder with my company. And then we're doing what's called a builder forward commitment. It's essentially where they will purchase the rights to funds at a predetermined interest rate, and then they can turn around and offer those funds to an investor, provided that they close with me. Okay. Love this program because number one, you can cash flow in this crazy market where rates are just the highest they've been in 35 years, right? Number two, you can get into a property now when the competition is less fierce. A lot of things we've been talking about. There's a lot of people who said we're just going to sit here and wait till rates drop down. That's fine. You can do that. Problem is when you do that, you're number one, you wait about 2.5, 3 years when those rates finally do dip down to where they're palatable for you, where you can actually cash flow. But now you're going to be competing against a much larger pool of investors. Everybody's going to be coming out of the woodwork when rates drop. So now you've got this increased demand, and Austin touched on it earlier. What happens when you have increased demand? You're going to have increased prices. Just common supply and demand economics will take over at that point. So, but some of the rates that they have right now are phenomenal. Like, for example, we do the 10-year ARMs, we do the 30-year fixed. It really comes down to what are you, what's your, what can you handle, right? I've heard a lot of people sit there and they say, well, I don't want to do ARMs. ARMs are really dangerous loans. Rate's going to go up. Rate's going to go sky high. So what I like about the ARMs is they are, first of all, they're going to be the lowest rate of the options that we have out there. Okay. But it is a 10-year ARM. Think about how long 10 years is. Okay. It's a really long time before these rates can adjust. Another kind of safeguard we built into that is we're also running what's called a rate rebound program. So the rate rebound is you actually have 5 years from the date that you close where you can actually come back to CMG and you can refinance that interest rate that you have. If you do that within 5 years, we're going to waive all lender fees on those refinances. So there won't be any lender fees. Plus, we're also going to give them $1,000 to put towards a third-party fee, which would be the biggest third-party fee out there is the appraisal, of course. The only fees we don't have control over, of course, is going to be title fees. So there will be a title cost. So it's not 100% free refi, but it's going to be probably the best option you have if you're trying to keep your expenses in check and also get into a lower rate, or maybe get into something more permanent at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've got the 10.6s ranging from 3.75 up to 4 3/4. 30-year fixes from 4.25 all the way up to 4.9. Pretty much we got something for everybody here that everybody would be happy with. These are all cash flowing rates that we're offering.
That's awesome. So is this a temporary thing that you're doing, or are these rates, I mean, is it some kind of promotion?
Well, yeah, obviously rates are constantly changing. So, typically from month to month, and it's not on a calendar month. It's just, basically we watch how the market's behaving right now. Southern Impression jumped on this about a week ago, when the rates, we had sort of an off day in the market, and everybody was thinking, rates are going to fall, drastically, and that, of course, it rebounded the next day. It's just the way the market is right now. It's very volatile. But one thing I do like about Southern Impression, even though they wanted to get on this early, they're probably going to lose a little bit of money. Austin, don't tell Jim and Chris that. I'm doing the best I can for that not to happen. So in the short term, they're probably going to lose some money, but in the long term, it'll work out for everybody.
Yeah, lose some money with the buy downs, you mean?
Yeah, so it could change in 2 weeks. It could change in a week. It could change in a month. It's really up to the CEO over at Southern Impression.
So Chad, let me ask you this quick question. If I wanted to ensure that I got a 3.75, would the move be to wait, or would it be to move forward now?
I would move in now,
Yep.
because like I said, I don't know if that rate's going to change. If, there's a number of things that can happen, and, all it takes is a couple of great days on Wall Street. I mean, we were down to, I want to say 37,000, maybe 38,000 a couple weeks ago, and we're up over 41,000 again. So the trend is ticking back up again, but there is other things on the horizon. There is the potential rate drop by the Fed. There's nothing guaranteed or written in stone about that either, and that won't be until the end of September. So they reserve the right to pull this away at any time. I would say if you have an option to get it at 3.75, I mean, jump on it for sure. I mean, guys, it's 3.75. I mean,
Yeah. Those days are gone for a lot of people. So it just sounds too good to be true, Chad. So do people have to work with you if they want to buy a Southern Impression home, or can they shop around? Can they go to their mortgage person and get quotes?
sure, yeah, they can shop around. They can go to their mortgage guy. They're just not going to be able to get these incentives that we're offering, because
Okay.
it's both between Southern. It's a partnership between Southern Impression and CMG. So kind of touching on that again, we actually own our own services company. So we can actually do these separate transactions with the builder. So they're basically putting up money for their investors to be able to offer these rates to them. But the caveat is they have to go through me.
Okay.
Chad, do you want to touch on, I know that when we talk about the buy down, if there's 2% to me as the investor, what is the builder putting in for something like that? How much, if I wanted a 3.75 on my own, how much would that cost me outside of working with SI Homes?
It changes daily, but I would say I checked on this earlier today. I want to say it was 10.95 points was the total points, so roughly 11 points.
Wow.
So, if you're paying 2 points for that, that may sound like a lot. 1.95 or 2 points is what I have to pay for 3.75. But let's not forget that the 9 points that's left over is actually being paid for by Southern Impression. Yeah, so it's just not that they're paying 2 points to get to 3.75. For obvious reasons, Southern Impression would like a little bit of shared cost to help out with that. Every builder's got their own margins, but what I've seen for the most part, Southern Impression is probably one of the most aggressive builders out there with their buy downs.
We're
Chad,
happy to have the relationship with Chad to be able to offer that.
absolutely. Do you do DSCR loans as well? Do you do everything, or?
Yep, sure do. So we do the DSCR, we do the foreign national loans, we do bank statement loans, asset depletion. We've got pretty much, you can do 12-month bank statement on business, personal, or both. We've got all the different programs out there. Probably the most popular one right now is the DSCR. It's just a lot easier
Mm.
because, I mean, for those that already have 10 finance properties or those that just don't show enough income on their returns, right? For obvious reasons. If you're self-employed, the more you make, the more they're going to take, right? So the name of the game is the self-employed borrower is to not show a ton of money on your tax returns. And sometimes that's at the detriment of getting approved for a standard conventional loan. So do keep in mind that if you have to go DSCR, I like to say it's the last resort first. See if you can qualify conventionally. If you can't, then go DSCR because the rate is going to be higher. There is no buy down on the DSCR programs.
Well, thank you so much for all of this great intel. I mean, I really feel like what you're offering investors seems very turnkey. If you have something that's complicated, like a short-term rental, and you've just had enough of it, or you just want to get into something else or start investing for the first time, this is a great option for people.
Absolutely, Mindy. We've helped out, over 1,000 investors currently, and that list is growing daily. What I'd like to do is I'm going to shoot you over the rate sheet so that I'm reading some of the comments here. So just so they can start picking their rate, like Chad mentioned, this 3.75 might not be around in a week. So if that is something they want to move forward with, we definitely want to start those conversations. So I'll shoot that over to you right now. And if you want to blast it to all of our 10 folks, thank you all for showing up and thank you for having us.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And I hope to have you back again to talk
Yes,
about this
ma'am.
in another time. It's Mindy. Thanks again for joining me on this conversation. If you got something out of this, subscribe to my channel, join me on Facebook at Invest with Mindy or on Instagram, and I'll see you next time.